Howdy, and welcome back to Celebrating Vintage Model Kits. Going to be looking at another battle damage kit from IMC. This is a 1969 MiG-21D all-weather fighter, 1/72nd scale, and it is kit number 486-100, so it's a $1 kit. MiG-21D, I think what they're trying to say here is fishbed D, because the model that this is replicating is actually in the Soviet designation system, the MiG-21 PF, and the NATO reporting name for that was fishbed D. So I think that's what they're kind of blending the two together with that. As far as IMC goes, we've done a previous video on one of their battle damage kits, the A1 Skyraider. I'll provide a link in the description to that video. Go into a little bit more of the history of IMC. And in that video, there's also a link to Max from Max's Models, his video on the history of IMC, if you really want to get a deep dive into that. So the MiG-21, won't get too much into that, but as a review, it was flown by 60 countries. It was the most produced supersonic aircraft ever. It was the most produced combat aircraft since the Korean War, and it had the longest production run of any aircraft, going from 1959 to 1986, as far as combat aircraft, I should say. Total production was 11,496, with 10,645 built by the Russians, 840 by India, and 194 by Czechoslovakia. China also produced their version of it. It was called the Chengdu J7 and F7. They produced about 2,400, give or take. There isn't a specific number on that. And they produced theirs from 65 to 2013, so a pretty long production run as well. First flight was in 16 June of 1965. I'm sorry, 1955. It was the Yi-4 prototype from Migoyan and Gervich. I think that's how you say that. Maybe not. And one of the unique things on the fishbed D was that it had a forward opening cockpit canopy that stopped with the PF, and starting with the PFM. The canopy hinged to the side. With the forward opening canopy, there was a ejection seat called the SK1 that was connected to the canopy itself. So the canopy would open up first, creating kind of a windbreak, and then the seat would eject. They had a lot of difficulty with it. One of the reasons why they changed everything on it. Had a minimum height of 110 meters, so quite a number of guys were injured trying to eject from the earlier MiG-21s. So it's a little additional background information on the MiG-21. Let's take a look at the kit itself. So we've got, as mentioned here, extra battle damage parts included. You can build a stock or battle scarred. Part of the 72nd scale combat scale series from IMC. And with this one has the bonus of building it with the pilot and ejecting position, which is being shown in this box art. This box art is got a signature on here, which can't quite make out the first name, but the last name is Sasso. So those of you in the viewer world, if you're familiar with who that is, please let us know in the comment section. I wasn't able to figure that out, but I'm sure somebody out there knows. And you can see here, it's being depicted, pretty well shot up. It looks like cannon fire, so maybe from a F-100 or maybe a Crusader, something with a gun early in the war. So that's on the top. On the side here, they've also got additional kits that were available as part of the battle damage series, build a stock or build a battle scarred veteran. An RF4B Phantom, Super Saber, and a Thunder Chief. Thunder Chief turned out to be a ripoff of Monogram's kit. On this side here, we've got the Skyraider, which is covered in another video, another Monogram ripoff. The Skyhawk, and then the MiG-21. On the end, we've got a repetition of the profile, location of IMC, which shows you here Industrial Motive Corporations, what IMC stood for, and your kit number. This end is similar. Now let's take a look at the inside. We've got our instruction sheet here. Put in some pretty cheap paper. A little bit of history of the MiG. Some modeling tips right here. And this is showing the box art for the other aircraft in the series. And 3 steps. Put the fuselage and wings, pretty much the whole thing together on the first one. And then you've got landing gear, weapons. I think these are the ATOL missiles that were on here. And then showing you your choice of pilots. There's your regular pilot going inside. And if you want to do the ejecting guy, you've got a guy pulling the hood over his head. And you get a little clear part to have the guy sticking out. It does give you some tips on painting the battle damage parts. If you choose to swap those in. On the back side here, you've got a couple of painting bits of information here for stock one and then camouflage. And they're showing everything all on just this 2 view for all 3 of the markings that come with it. Some information on decal application. So pretty simple, not much to that. Then here we have our decals. They're showing basically 3 different aircraft here. You got 4128. This one here's the black 79, and then a black 61. And then these are common amongst all of them. Really poorly rendered service markings, I guess those would be. You can see they've yellowed. They're kind of out of register as well. Not the best in the world. Nothing on the back side. But what I was able to figure out for markings on this is that this one here, this camouflage one, with the yellow stars, is, I believe, trying to represent an aircraft from North Vietnam. There's a few photographs of the aircraft in Vietnamese service. They're black and white. So it's hard to tell what color the that 4128 is. But the MiG-21 that is in the U.S. Air Force Museum is also marked as 4128, but it's in red. It's not the actual aircraft. The aircraft from the Air Force Museum came from, I think, like Czechoslovakia or something like that. So it's not the Vietnamese aircraft that they painted it up in. But it does have red markings. This is not at all what the the North Vietnamese national markings look like, but this is, I think, kind of what they're showing on the cover here, even though this is a plain gray, which in the instructions they're telling you to camouflage this. So the actual real aircraft is in the bare metal as opposed to painted gray. Then these 2 here, I believe, are supposed to be additional Soviet ones. Again, as is typical with Soviet aircraft, that just have these simple numbers and not much else. It's really hard to kind of tell exactly which actual aircraft they're trying to represent. I was able to source a couple of photographs that the numbers look pretty similar to these, just a couple of numbers off. So I'll show you those there. Those are part of some Soviet VVS squadrons. So let's take a look at some of those pictures right now. Okay, so let's take a look at the plastic. So we've got our first tree here, which is kind of unusual in that it looks like they have folded over a tree when it was warm, and in order to make it fit in the box. This was one, you can picture this being folded open. Same thing with this one. And while the plastic was still soft, they folded it over in order to be able to make them fit in this kind of box. And so here we've got our fuselage halves of the stock version, I guess you could call it. And we've got fairly large rivets and raised panel lines on here. Fairly simple. There are some access spots here. There is some engraved lines for the rudder. And there's, you can see that there, small little bits there for one of the sensors. A little bit, there's quite a bit of flash actually on here. So that's that half. Here's our ejecting pilot, pulling the hood over his head. And it's got kind of a full seat there. There's the back side here. Here we've got the damaged, battle damaged wing and tail. There's our wheel. There's our landing gear. A little bit of detail on there. There's our, what I'm assuming are atoll missiles. I don't know how accurate those are. They look kind of generic and soft on detail. And then as far as interior goes, on the fuselage, there really isn't anything in there. It's like a little peg to put the pilot seat on. And then here we have our battle damaged fuselage part. Kind of nicely done. That same thing here, you've got these really large rivets and raised panel lines on here. Kind of looks like the way that it's being done here kind of reminds me of some of the Japanese kits of the 60s, 50s and 60s. And I'm wondering, given IMC's history, if this may not be a copy of a Japanese kit. So I don't really have any other MiG-21s in my collection. So those of you out there, if you've got a Japanese manufactured MiG-21, you know, if this looks familiar to you, let us know in the comment section. Here's our regular horizontal stabilizers. There's our nose, some wing fences, it looks like, gear doors. And that's about it with that. Here's our regular flying pilot. Not too bad. It's got a little bit of detail on there. And then we've got our stand parts. So we've got this lightning bolt and this little triangle here for it to go on. And then this sprue has the little clear part for making the ejecting pilot. And then finally we've got our front opening canopy. It is fairly heavy framing on it, so easy to paint but not necessarily very accurate. It's not too thick. It's got a little bit of distortion going to it, so not too terribly bad. But there's not really much to see inside that cockpit. So, and then they do have it tabbed on the front, so you can put it in the closed or flip it up for the open position. So there you go. There's your battle damage MiG-21. Kind of a unique marketing tool. Kind of set themselves apart from the competitors in the late 60s. This is part of the first series of kits that IMC made at the time. So yeah, if you want to try to pull people away from Revell and Monogram and Aurora, you got to offer them something different. So why not do some battle damage, blown apart parts? So, so IMC didn't last very long as far as producing aircraft kits. They did a lot of car kits, but aircraft kits were very limited. There's these 6 from this series, which 2 of them were outright rip-offs of Monogram. So they weren't able to produce those anymore, and they folded up shortly after in the early 70s. The molds got kicked around for a while. Supposedly they may have ended up with Hawk, and then Hawk at some point became acquired by Testers, and then that, the models ended up getting sold to Lindbergh. And so then Lindbergh did offer a reissue of this one in 1992 with markings for an Iraqi MiG-21 and also a Soviet MiG-21. So it was right after First Gulf War, so making it battle-damaged Iraqi MiG-21 seems like would be pretty popular. They reissued it again in 2007. And then finally in 2020, they issued it as a double kit with the F-100. So they went back and utilized the original artwork. Had kind of a split across the box. One half was the F-100. The other half is the artwork for this MiG-21. And that is the last issue of it. Of course, when Lindbergh did their reissues of this, they did not include the F-105 and the A1 Skyraider. So those 2 kits have become sought-after ones. The other ones, there was a lot more production of them, of course, and then since they've been able to be reissued, they're somewhat common. So that's about it for this one. If you have built this, tell us about it in the comments section, of course. And if you've got one of these sitting on your shelf still, take some pictures of it and send it in so we can take a look at it. I believe we may have received some pictures from the previous build, or a previous viewer build video when we did the A1 Skyraider. I think somebody had sent in the MiG-21 as well. So I'll include those with our going out pictures so you can see already what one of the built up ones look like from one of our viewers. But if you got one, definitely shoot some pictures and send it in as well. Well, that's it. So thanks for watching, and have yourself a great rest of your day.